All right, let's begin with 2 minutes of silence. Right. Thank you, everyone. And this is that quick boilerplate slide, just kind of showing that occultism is about life as an art, not about special powers or anything. And this we went over last meeting, uh, kind of an intro for all of these private rules that Blavatsky then talks about. And we'll go straight into one of them here. So I'll read this first one, and then if anyone wants to read the others, please feel welcome to. This one's kind of intense. It uses a lot of strange words, so I'll try to pull out from the green part here, which are notes on this rule three. I'll try to incorporate those as I read three, so it's less confusing, but I'll probably still get confused. So it says, before the teacher can impart to the disciple the holy words of Lamren, which is practical instructions. So before the teacher can give to the disciple practical instructions or permit him to be ready for Dubjed, and Dubjed is, it says here in the green, to prepare the vessels used for seership, such as mirrors and crystals. So essentially, strange occult powers. Before anyone's ready to do that, going back up to the blue here, we need to make we need to make take care that his mind is thoroughly purified and at peace with all, especially with his other selves, which then it says down here are his fellow students. So before we can get practical instructions or use occult powers, we need to be at peace with the people studying around us. And then it says in the blue further, otherwise the words of wisdom and of the good law shall scatter and be picked up by the winds. And then the last part in the green here that rule three didn't touch upon is, unless the greatest harmony reigns among the learners, no success is possible. It is the teacher who makes the selections according to the magnetic and electric natures of the students, bringing together and adjusting most carefully the positive and the negative elements. And I'll pause for a second just to assimilate this, I suppose. That was a lot of talking. Yeah, I find it interesting that she's kind of saying here, or this rule from the East is saying that we can't learn anything about practical occultism unless we're at harmony with the people learning around us. Which means, I suppose, if we're in a group setting, maybe here, maybe anywhere, and someone says something and it ruffles our feathers, or we get annoyed, we know right then and there we're not going to learn anything, nothing that matters at least. We're not going to learn how to live life or what we're supposed to be doing, just by that very fact that we're annoyed by someone near us.
I don't know if the annoying is like the right thing, like how to say. For me, what you said, to see, especially with these other selves, this is like an interesting point that you should see others as your uh, own self. And, sometimes I'm annoyed of myself also. Like this is annoyed is like, yeah, I I mean, like you should not be constantly like angry or constantly annoyed. Or I think a little annoyance. I don't know. Yeah, I can't say that. Maybe you shouldn't be. Maybe you should be very harmonious with yourself also. Um, but I think this few words that says that should take care with his mind is truly purified and at peace with all, especially with his other selves. And if it means especially with his other selves, then it implies that there are those who are not my other selves and those who are my other selves, or who with whom I should at least add like a connection, like myself. So um like if you're like truly annoyed or are truly like I don't know, confronted, then it's then could it be your other selves? Like it says, if you're truly purified, it will not happen. But I think the
Yeah,
emphasis is that you're feeling the others as yourself.
yeah, that all makes sense, and you're right. It's probably too strong a language to say you can't feel annoyed by anyone around you, because that's kind of an automatic emotional reaction, right? To feel annoyed, and that you can't get around that. If someone punches you in the arm, it's gonna hurt. Same as if someone's objectively annoying, you're gonna be annoyed. But
You
maybe it
know,
means not identifying with it or
you
something
know,
along those lines.
I put my toe, I hit my toe accidentally against the rock or something, and I got annoyed, but not in that sense that like I'm angry, or I understand that this is it is not ideal, but there's nothing I can really do, and I'm not lingering on it like a long time. Yeah.
I think maybe this feelings of negative feelings, they are like destructive forces in our personalities. So before the Master of Wisdom pours energy into the group, the Master of Wisdom has to be sure that this energy will not go channeled into some destructive forces in the minds of the disciples. I think maybe like that. And um, of course, if we have minor annoyance, it's probably more important what we are doing with it at the moment, how we channel it, how we work with it, than not to have it at all. But probably some general level of, the state of mind must qualify somehow in terms of peace uh, and unity between the students for the Master of Wisdom to decide to give this energy to the group.
Yeah, that's a good
Maybe
point.
for
Go ahead, sorry.
go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that's a good point about the underlying reason why, so that the energy the master's giving doesn't get directed towards something evil. I didn't think about that. But yeah, go ahead, Chris. Sorry.
Maybe for me, the passage is like telling us that before we go into the study of the ageless wisdom, whether we're in the presence of a physical master or perhaps in a lodge we're in, the master may not be there physically, but their energy is there. I think it means that a certain level of calm has to be created before we study the ageless wisdom. Because if there's any disturbance in our mind, whether physical, whether what you mentioned, annoyance, whether it's depression, if there's any distraction in our mind, then the wisdom that they impart will just be scattered in the winds. We won't be able to absorb anything about what they're saying because we're preoccupied with other things. So maybe it's saying that before we go into the study of the ageless wisdom, we have to make sure that a certain level of calm, a certain level of focus has to be there before we read or before we attend the lecture or before we meditate.
That makes sense. Yeah, and that probably applies to everything that we learn, right? Um, I know that some people have in school, for instance, have trouble feeling calm and at peace, and it's hard for them to learn anything there. And I thought it was interesting here at the bottom of the green, where it says that the master essentially uh, is careful that the positive and the negative elements in the students cancel each other out, which could maybe help us feel less annoyed by those other people around us who are so different from us, because they're there for the exact reason to balance out the things about ourselves that are probably annoying to them. I don't know if anyone's ever seen that in groups that they've been a part of, people that are so different from them that it kind of rubs them the wrong way, but maybe they're there for a reason. If not, we can go to the next rule. All right, rule 4, if anyone wanted to read.
I can read it. The Upasaka, while studying, must take care to be united as the fingers on one hand. Thou shalt impress upon their minds that whatever hurts one should hurt the others, and if the rejoicing of one finds no echo in the breasts of others, then the required conditions are absent, and it is useless to proceed. This can hardly happen if the preliminary choice made was consistent with the magnetic requirements. It is known that Shellas, otherwise promising and fit for the reception of truth, had to wait for years on account of their temper and the impossibility they felt to put themselves in tune with their companions.
Well, wait for years is not so bad. It's not lives, is it?
But also, like here it says, like the teacher chooses, like already that kind of people who are able to feel happiness of each other, like and it's like you don't have to worry too much about it. If you're not chosen yet, there's something to improve still, like but uh, but I think if you're already like if you're already like in this kind of study group or on the way, then you already have this appropriate magnetic requirements. And I understand it means that in certain sense, they're ready to learn and ready to make themselves pure, but at the same time, it does not mean that they are totally the same. Like, I think it means like they're able to, how to say, addition each other or make each other work better. I think Seth or somebody mentioned before that Master told Sinet that he and his wife could not make a study group together because their energy is too similar. So I mean that implies that this, even in the study group, you must have, it is good if you have people with a little bit different understanding and seeing what is needed. It's like this open-mindedness and respect towards the others. It seems to me.
I guess for me, this line talks about the importance of group consciousness. Oftentimes we think of the Chela guru discipleship model is like a one-to-one thing, like there's a guru and then there's a Chela. But in other esoteric traditions, there's also like a group discipleship. So meaning there's one guru, but in order to maximize his efforts, he doesn't just choose one disciple, but he chooses a group of disciples. It's because a group works better together than just one alone. So, for example, if I want to serve, there's very little I can do by myself. But if it's a group of people together, serving together or meditating together, our impact will be greater. So, the masters, being there's very few of them and there's a lot of us, they might also be trying to maximize their efforts. So, instead of taking just one-on-one chelas, they might also be taking on groups, not necessarily outward groups. Like it doesn't have to be like they're gonna take on the World Federation of Young Theosophists or another group similar to that. But it can be like I have a certain calling to do, for example, healing, and then another person has that same calling. We may not know each other on the physical plane, but somehow the masters are able to join our efforts together, and the master is able to work through us in different means. It's like the Buddhist concept of Guanyin having like 1,000 hands. So the Guanyin is like the spirit of compassion, and every person who works to alleviate the suffering of others is represented by one hand. We may not know consciously that we're working together, but on a deeper spiritual level, we're actually working together. There's only one spirit of compassion that works through us. It's just that on a physical level, we may not be aware that we're actually working in a group formation.
I think there may be like individual tasks within the general process of learning and training the disciples, where it's better to learn and teach one-on-one and better to learn and teach in a group. So it may be like in the periods or in different circumstances somehow. And I think the feeling of family that appears between these disciples must be completely amazing, far beyond what a regular family can achieve probably in our world who are not esoteric students. And also, there is a thought that sometimes comes to me that among the people that I know in the TS, maybe in some lives we will be studying together somewhere, which is a beautiful idea.
Yeah, they are beautiful ideas that are probably true. I think what could stand in the way of those is a sense of competition in the TS. That it's kind of in complete contrast to whatever hurts one will hurt the others, or if they're rejoicing in the heart of one isn't felt in the others. It's probably because in the TS there's some sense of competition or trying to outstrip the people around you. And that I have seen in the TS before, and it makes me kind of sad. But I suppose we all have our own karma to work through. But I do really wish that it could work out in such a way that we're all working for the same thing, trying to help the world around us, and it has nothing to do with our own personalities. I don't know. I mean, in my own personal life, I've seen people become nasty to others and really try to put them down because they're working for something for themselves, and the more someone else does good work, the less they look good. And I don't know, that kind of breaks my heart for the TS. I don't know if anyone had anything else about Rule 4 here.
But why it said it's Eastern rules to prevent danger of black magic here?
That was from, let me scoot back here to the slide here. So this was kind of the prefix to all these rules in the book, Practical Occultism. And the idea is that these rules are given to teachers in the East. There's, I think, 60 or 70 of these rules. Blavatsky only put 12 in the book because the other ones were just so out of the context of a Western mind that they'd be meaningless to us. But the idea is that all these rules are for students in the East to not fall into black magic. So I suppose there's a chance that we could study occultism, try to live this art of life more effectively, and not completely follow these rules. But it just means there's more danger that we're going to become selfish and fall into black magic, which is just using these powers for selfish means.
Yeah, and we may think that we don't study practical occultism, we study theoretical occultism in the works of, well, of the authors that we follow, which is true, of course, but also if we are serious about it and if it changes our life and we live in a certain, like a more perfect way, these powers start to wake up anyway. So it's not that theoretical and practical occultism are completely separate from each other. They are not. They are somehow a little bit connected. So these rules apply for us, I think, too. It's just in a small degree probably, but still they apply because we, again, if we are serious and study meditation service goes on for many years, we do touch occultism in our life.
Yeah, I think so too. Because, like you're saying, if we're serious studying these things, it kind of speeds up natural evolution. So that then if our minds, if we think about something intently, could have a lot more power behind a thought than otherwise we would if we'd never even learned about theoretical occultism. And in that way, it doesn't feel like black magic at all, but we could effectively be doing black magic if with our strengthened minds, we're sending negative thoughts or annoyance to someone. We could really hurt them. Would anybody want to read Rule 5?
I can read. The co-disciples must be tuned by the guru as the strings of a flute, vina, each different from the others. yet each emitting sound in harmony with whole. Collectively, they must form a keyboard, answering in all its parts to the lightest touch, the touch of the master. Thus, their mind shall open for the harmonies of wisdom, to vibrate as knowledge through each and all, resulting in effect pleasing to the presiding gods, tutelary or patron angels, and useful to the Lanu. So shall wisdom be impressed forever on their hearts, and the harmony of law shall never be broken.
It's kind of plays to the idea of maybe an orchestra, each person is a different instrument. And together they make a sound that otherwise they couldn't.
It's interesting that it says open for the harmonies of wisdom to vibrate as knowledge through each and all. So like wisdom passes through us and becomes knowledge. This is the idea, probably, as I suppose. Interesting phrase. And these presiding gods, I suppose, is maybe true selves, or our true selves.
What
That are
does
very,
this,
yes.
sorry, what does this word tutelary means? It is like, I don't
Teaching,
know.
teaching,
Let me look it up.
Teaching. Okay.
teaching. I think tutelary, like a tutor, a teacher.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, teacher or a protector, guardian. I'm a native English speaker and I had to look it up.
Very poetically said.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder
So
if it, sorry, go ahead.
I just want to say, as I suppose what I'm reading is that our true self starts the personality, right? Sends the ray, and that becomes our mind as a personality, and does this many times as we reincarnate. So it's like the project, the one who starts the project and runs the project of our incarnation. So in this particular case, our true self is happy because the project is so successful finally, and so they are pleased. Well, that's my attempt at interpretation.
Yeah, I think your interpretation is probably the right one. Go ahead, Chris.
Sorry, yeah, I was thinking of the same lines. In similar lines, I was thinking that maybe if a group is like really dedicated to the study of the ancient wisdom, um, they really achieve that group level of consciousness that they're in harmony with each other. Maybe it's attracting like tutelary or patron angels that's guiding them in the study. So there are things that we can't fathom by ourselves, but if we study together and with that united group intention of learning, maybe it's telling us that this kind of group dynamic is also attracting the tutelary or patron angels, and somehow this environment fosters growth that can't happen if you're studying alone.
Yeah, kind of like maybe it's attracting intelligences from the Deva Kingdom. I'm reminded of I think it's The Masters in the Path by Leadbeater. He talks about how one of the masters has an organ or a piano in his house, and he'll play it from time to time, and he plays it in such a way that it attracts elementals or devas towards him, and then he's able to kind of work with them and direct them in different ways to help the world. So maybe this is something similar, where in addition to our, higher self, which is probably the real presiding patron angel, we attract these other devas too and work with them like we would with a pet, although they're not our pets. That was a bad metaphor.
But they might be one day in the future pets or even humans.
Yeah.
Yeah. But one other thought came to my mind. We were talking here about this group that is very harmonious. But let's say you have a study group and there are some people who are like more harmonious, and then there's some other people who are not yet so harmonious, because in the end everybody will. But and I'm like thinking, if it's group that is mostly consistent people who are the main intention is, well, let's see. But if there's like a few people who are very like pure, are they, I don't know, affecting all this group? Or is it like if you have a huge group and you have one or two people who are like trying to do it in their best way, and like, is it worth it? Like, this is my question.
Worth it in what way? As far as like maybe the energy is being dissipated and it's useless, or
Yes, because if the overall thought is like a little bit depressing, and it's like is it better, like I'm thinking, we are discussing before, like if we had this harmonious group, we can study much more, and we got these patron angels who are going to help and everything, and it's better than learning alone. But in a case where it is a very difficult group, whether a person who's really interested in going deeper, is it easier to learn alone or be in such a group? I mean, karmically, there's a reason why people are in this group, and of course, there's also a kind of how to say, a test to learn or pass, but in a point of this knowledge or wisdom.
yeah, I think I see what you're getting at. Yeah, sometimes I participate in pretty superficial groups where there's nothing wrong with them, and the people there are all really nice, but they don't really want to understand what's happening and why. It's more just like, this is interesting. Let's learn about that. And I get that feeling of, am I really doing anything that matters here? And I still go because I belong to that group and I care about the people there. But I'm honestly not very intellectually present. I just kind of listen and do my own thing. It's not really an answer to your question, but I think it probably depends on our own discernment, maybe, and if the group is actively hurting us, maybe leave it. If not, maybe like you're saying, it's a part of our karma to be there, and through this experience, we'll learn enough to find that harmonious group. I don't know.
Yeah, about this karma, I'm thinking like, if a person has a certain disease, it's their karma. But if they are already born in this era where you can have like operation or very good medical help, and it is also your karma to be cured. And I'm like I'm thinking, I guess there is not a yes or right answer. I guess every circumstances are different in every case, and also it's not like right or wrong. If you do one thing, then it leads to the next some sequence of the next things, and if you do the other one, it leads to some sequence of the other kind of things. Yeah. just one of the thoughts that came to my mind, but we are talking right now a group that is so well harmonious that studying with it is much easier than studying alone. Yeah.
I think when we are in a group, we like each one of us brings something in the field, in the common field, and it's not like black and white. It's like a gradient and a balance. So we are obviously not like Eastern students in the mountains who have to be really pure to even start. We are like the way we are. So, but it's important that the balance is for the good. So if there is a healthy core of energies, a healthy core of people who can like maintain themselves in the good motivation, in a good state of mind, in the positive feelings, then some negative energies that come from some of the members of the group, they get transmuted, which is very good for everyone because it's more energy for the field, and also those who had those negative energies, they don't have that anymore, and they experience the good result of being a part of the group, and they like heal a little bit, and they remain the part of the group. So that's like step further to development of the people who constitute this group. And so yeah, I think so. Yes, and of course, if a group is not positive and not good, then obviously maybe it's better to study alone, because if you cannot change the situation for the better, then well, maybe there is no positive effect of that group anymore. Maybe there is another group or something. And by the way, an interesting idea here is that everything comes to decay, right? And there is this law that everything falls down, like religions degenerate, cultures, civilizations, everything like falls, and then there is a like a crisis or catharsis, and some messenger comes to start new cycle. And it works on a big scale, it works on a small scale, but inside the old group or the old tendency, the old cycle, there is always a seed of something good that can be and is transplanted to the new. So even in a group that is somehow negative, there may be people who maintain the good motivation and the good feeling, even if they cannot really change the whole in any significant, visible way.
I think that was a very beautiful answer. Thank you. But I think I don't think nobody is in this position that they can never change. Everybody is somewhere in the process of changing, and for some people it is easier to change faster, and for some they got a little bit stuck in some places. But I will see everybody as as in a part of this dynamic process of getting better and better. Yeah, but maybe in a different velocity.
Okay, if there was nothing else for rule 5, go to number 6 here.
I can read it. A small one. Number 6. Those who desire to acquire the knowledge leading to the cities, occult powers, have to renounce all the vanities of life and of the world.
So if I'm not interested in cities, can I still have the vanities of the world? because I'm not I to see the superpower movies are interesting, but can I do my share without yeah.
And if I'm not interested in the vanities of life, can I have cities?
I mean, in the end, we all have to renounce the vanities of the life and of the world. But it's like a commercial right here. If you want, you have to pay this price.
And maybe it's a good thought exercise to think about what vanities of the world we are actively engaged in. Like watching the latest Marvel movie. I don't know if that's a vanity or not, but
It's interesting that when occult powers and cities appear in a human being, so much becomes available for that person, that people who are after the vanities of life and of the world would like sell their soul to have that. So yeah, to get that, you need to stop wanting that. When you stop wanting that, you can have that. Something like that, maybe.
number 7 here. None can feel the difference between. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Chris.
No, go ahead.
Okay. None can feel the difference between himself and his fellow students, such as I am the wisest, I am more holy and pleasing to the teacher or in my community than my brother, etc., and remain in Upasaka, which I think is disciple. His thoughts must be predominantly fixed upon his heart, chasing therefrom every hostile thought to any living being. The heart must be full of the feeling of its non-separateness from the rest of beings, as from all in nature. Otherwise, no success can follow.
Yes. So the school teaches us in a one-way thinking, and now we are learning how to think the other way, that it is not the most important or not important at all to be the most pleasing to the teacher or community and so on. To, that in one sense we had been taught to be in this kind of rating our sense and rating others, and this is how with all our childhood and so on. And now it says like you must erase it to yourself, or else you cannot remain a Pasaka. But I like that it says your thought must be predominantly fixed. So it doesn't mean that they have to be there 100%, like because I in my mind it is like a meditation. You try to meditate, then your thought goes away, then you bring it back, then it goes away, but then you bring it back again, and it is like this coming back, or this when you notice you come back, you fix up on his heart, and yeah, this is what it means for me predominantly. And also other beings from all in nature, so also in animals, also the worms in the earth, or insects, or you see some insects somewhere, and yeah, what is your attitude towards it? Otherwise there's no success.
Yeah, I think maybe that feeling of being separate and superior is meant to fill a hole in ourselves that we feel. And if we feel like we're better than someone else, we don't feel quite so bad about ourselves anymore. And I think maybe for some people, recognizing that in themselves is enough to maybe grow beyond it to an extent, because we are all the same thing. You know, that consciousness looking at the world right now is the same in me as it is in you, if we go down deep enough.
Yes, I think you mentioned important things here about this rating, that you're rating because you want to fill the like hole in yourself. But if you recognize I am enough and this, I don't know, this spark is enough and this dog is enough for it, what it is. It doesn't have to be, I don't know, not so dirty or not so loud or whatever. That it does, it is as it is, and it doesn't have to be like any other way, or like yeah, maybe if you have like this if this rating drops and you start to see value and things as they are, not how they should be, there's a bigger chance. But you know, this movie that is constantly going on in your mind is not going on. It does not tell you a story anymore, and everything you look is already like in peace. It doesn't mean that it has to be in peace, but the way how you perceive it, it is.
It's interesting that it uses here the text Pasaka, which is, I think, a Buddhist term, right? Yeah, specifically.
I think so. That's in The Voice of the Silence, right? For learner, I think.
The HPV was called the Pasika by the masters.
Oh, that's what it was. You're right.
As she accepted Buddhism, and she was not a nun, but like a lay student. Well, as I understand, according to Buddhist perspective, specifically, she was had the status of a lay student and a woman, so Upasika. But that's interesting and very practical, right? So the recommendation is specifically to focus upon the heart.
Yeah, and it reminds me of that last unnumbered rule of Light on the Path. Before the soul can stand in the presence of the master, its feet must be washed in the blood of the heart. Which I think is talking exactly about this, getting rid of that selfishness and separateness. And sometimes I try to remind myself that everything, literally everything, is exactly the way it's supposed to be. And the only inconsistencies are just with the way that I see the world. I just don't understand it well enough yet to know that this is exactly how it's supposed to be. But all these selfish people around, they're doing exactly what they should be doing. Me not understanding it yet, I'm also doing what I should be doing, and it'll all work out in time.
Yes, I also like try to train myself to think that way. Yeah.
Anything else for number 7? Right. If anybody. Okay, thank you.
A Lanu or disciple has to dread external living influence alone, magnetic emanations from living creatures. For this reason, while at one with all, in his inner nature, he must take care to separate his outer or external body from every foreign influence. None must drink out of or eat in his cup but himself, He must avoid bodily contact, being touched or touch with human as well as with animal. So no pets are permitted, and it is forbidden even to touch certain trees and plants. A disciple has to live, so to say, in his own atmosphere in order to individualize it for occult purposes.
I have two Shih Tzus. I think one was barking earlier, and I would risk to be in danger of black magic to keep those dogs, to be honest.
I am thinking like, what have plants and trees have done? I mean, dogs. I kind of not dogs, animals. I believe also dogs are wonderful, but you know, there are different kinds of dogs who are trained in different kinds of purposes, and but plants, they're so peaceful. They're just staying. They can't go. Like, I don't know. It doesn't. I can't get to my mind how certain trees and plants are forbidden to touch. Like, there must be a reason. I remember when I first read it, I was thinking, okay, now I have to have a cup and things that, you know, only I eat and everything. But actually, if you're traveling around and so, okay, I can take my thermal cup with me, but in reality, every once in a while you have to eat somewhere outside, or it is like people think you're crazy if you take your own silverware out of your bag every time you go somewhere. Like, yeah. Um, I think this one is like possible if you live on top of the mountains alone.
I wonder if the reason for it is to make the aura, the energy of this disciple so incredibly individualized that there's no influence at all from the outside world. So that maybe in the future, when he goes back into the world, he can immediately recognize what's coming from inside of him and what's coming from outside of him. Because I know right now it gets really confusing and we can't tell even thoughts and emotions what's coming from outside versus inside. Maybe it's for that.
That's Yeah, I think that's also a good point. I observed this not just in the theosophical books. For example, when I was attending some of the functions of the Buddhist retreat center in the Philippines, like the Ocean Sky Monastery, like the abbess, they also follow the same rules, so they're not allowed to have pets. And then their utensils are separated from the utensils of the other students. So their stuff is usually just for themselves. They don't like their plate. You don't put it in the plate with others. You have to have it separate. So when you clean it, she has to clean it by herself. And other people are not supposed to touch her. And she's not supposed to touch others very like the way that we usually interact with others. I think it is in a way with the same reason that Seth mentioned, but it may also be something to do with the purity of the energy. So, for example, in ceremonial magic, for example, if you're going to like communicate with a spirit, for example, in a Mars sphere, you have to like create, like you have to burn incenses, you have to do symbols that are corresponding to the energy of that sphere, because the principle is that fish can't swim on air and birds can't swim underwater. So if you're going to ask a spirit to come to your sphere, it has to be magnetized in a certain way so that it doesn't interfere with them. So the dogs, the trees, they're not necessarily bad, but their energies might be different from the energies that you want to manifest. So therefore, at a certain stage, but not, I don't think that it's gonna be forever. So at a certain point, they'll have to move on from this exercise. But at a certain point, they have to maintain a particular concentration of the energy that they want to manifest without other energies impinging on it. And then once they are able to manifest it, perhaps at a later time they'll be able to have a certain level of control over their energies, and they don't have to exactly follow it to the letter. Sometimes it's also explained in a very how shall I say it, mundane way. Sometimes they say that if you have two pet dogs, they will become distractions to your mind. They're not like evil, they're not like impure things. It's just that sometimes they can be a distraction, and at a certain point in the path you don't want any distraction. So at a certain point, you have to let them go. And then when your concentration is enough that the dogs no longer serve as a distraction for you can probably have them back again. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Is there anything else on this rule 8 before we go to the closing meditation?
Well, just to add a little bit, I think it's not exactly for us in the full extent, because we live in the world, we cannot avoid all of that. And but to some extent it could be useful, for example, spending some time in your own company, in your own place, in a focused way, like devoted to some good work or to spiritual practice or to study, deep study. Maybe helps our energy to accumulate and somehow maybe transcend into a better quality. So to have periods like this for us could be useful, I guess. And also, by extension, probably things made of wool and things made of leather are not good to wear because it's like animal part that should not be worn probably by a human if we care about our energy so much, I guess. Thank you.
Yeah, that does make sense too. All right, then our last 2 minutes of silence here.